Live from SABC headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Welcome to this evening's edition of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo, and on the show this evening, South Africans expressed their anger and disgust at the indignity and humiliation suffered by Amatole District Municipality Councillor Nanziwe Gulashe. We look at what may have happened, who must be held to account, and how to ensure something like this never ever happens again. We also shine the spotlight on corruption. This on the back of a Transparency International report released today on perceptions of corruption in the country. On a day the president authorizes the release of the SIU report on PEE corruption. On the day a Parliament's Public Accounts Committee hears out an ANC MP who wants the head of the state quizzed on the back of allegations that he admitted to knowing that public funds were used for internal ANC campaigns. We also get a view from one of the country's most outspoken business leaders on the social compact being proposed by the governing party's leadership after its weekend lekgotla. All that and more in tonight's episode of The Watchdog, which starts right now. We start here. President Cyril Ramaphosa today authorized the release to the public of the final report of the investigation by the Special Investigating Unit, the SIU, into procurement by all spheres of government of goods, works and services associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it has taken the SIU 18 months to investigate about 5,467 contracts awarded to 3,066 service providers with a total value of 14.3 billion rands. Investigations have been finalized with respect to about 4,549 contracts, of which 2,803 were found to be irregular. This amounts to about 62% of the finalized investigations. What the SIU also did, of course, was 45 matters constituting a combined value of 2.1 billion rands have been enrolled with the Special Tribunal on Corruption, Fraud and Illicit Money Flows. Now, the Special Tribunal has a statutory mandate to recover public funds that have been taken from the fiscus through corruption, fraud, and illicit money flows. But it also engages in civil action that is more flexible and less time-consuming than adversarial. It has made, the SIU that is, 224 referrals for disciplinary action against officials who are in government departments or state entities. But the SIU also made 386 referrals to the National Prosecuting Authority, as well as 3 referrals for executive execution. It also made 330 referrals for administrative action, which includes blacklisting. A lot of work indeed in the space of 8 months. And in a country where the meals, of justice tend so often, grind rather slowly. And to take us through some of the things that came out of this report made public today by the president is Kaiser Khanyago, the SIU's spokesperson. Good evening, Mr. Khanyago. Thanks very much for your time this evening. When one looks at these numbers, and the amount of work that would have had to be involved, and what I've just said about generally the tendency, of state law enforcement agency of moving rather slowly on these kinds of matters. I think a lot of South Africans would agree that the work is commendable. What went into it?
Thank you very much, Vuyo, and thank you to your viewers. What went into it is dedication. I think when Advocate Mutibi arrived at the SIU a few years ago, one of the main things that he wanted to turn around was the speed of investigation. And he was very clear from the beginning that he wanted that to be done, and he wanted professionalism. And he said to everybody, we must put integrity at the center of what we do. And that is what has resulted in the work that has been done. We focused on this work from the day in July 2020 when the president made this proclamation. And then we made sure that on a weekly basis, we would sit for the whole day, or on a bi-weekly basis, sit for the whole day and go through all of these investigations, check where there are loopholes, where there is a need for extra hands to be put. And all of those things resulted in the dedication that you see in people that are working for government and who are doing much better than some of these private investigating firms would do.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, I'm not going to get into the detail, all those numbers, how many contracts, the value, how many are still outstanding, how many have been referred to the special tribunal, and so on. Now, the big question South Africans are asking is, what happens next?
There are a few things that are going to happen next for you. The first thing is, as you have indicated in your intro, there are matters that came to our attention just when we are about to finalize the report, and those matters are now going to be looked into and finalized. That supplementary report will be given to the president on at the end of June 2022. That's the first thing that will happen. The second thing is, because we have made those referrals, we are not just going to say, okay, we have made the referrals to the NPA, we have made the referrals to the entities for disciplinary. We are just not going to leave it there. We are going to do a follow-up on all of those. Sorry. We are going to make sure that prosecutions are taken seriously. We have already started that work. We are in engagement with the NPA. As I speak to you now, I know, as a matter of principle, that there are prosecutors that are allocated to these matters that we have referred to them, and we are going to work with them, assist them with the evidence that we have gathered, and make sure that these prosecutions are taken further. But we also are following up on all of the disciplinary referrals that we have done. As I speak to you now, at the end of the year, we send some of the referrals to the Department of Health in Gauteng and the Department of Infrastructure also in Gauteng to make sure that they are followed up and those people are dealt with. Those that have done wrong, if the disciplinary hearings find them guilty, and then they get punished for whatever they have done. And those things are going to be followed up. While on our side, we will be following up on all of these matters that are before the courts. You have seen in the report, we are saying there that we've got 45 cases that are before the tribunal. We'll make sure that we follow them up and make sure that that money is recovered. And those cases, among others, include the digital vibes, include the Beitbridge border fence, it includes the National Health Laboratory Services, to just name a few.
Mm-hmm. Now, and then, I mean, the special tribunal has also, I mean, it must be said, sort of moved with speed to finalize many of the cases that it has had to deal with over the past 18 months or so. But are there specific cases that you think may take a lot longer to conclude, some of which perhaps if you highlight them, South Africans may quickly remember?
Yes, maybe let me start by saying, yes, we would like to commend the work that is done by the Special Tribunal, because that has been part of our act all along. Our act says Special Investigating Units and Special Tribunal Act. Therefore, for us to activate that was useful, and they did a brilliant job in assisting us. Coming to your question, the issue around the cases that we think might take long, One that comes to mind is the Digital Vibes one, because we would have finalized it very quickly if it was not the fact that now there is a case in the High Court in Pretoria where they are now trying to cancel or set aside our report on Digital Vibes. And that becomes a case on its own, and it might affect the others. But even though, as we speak now, it is not affecting it, we have put our matter onto the role of the special tribunal in December, and we hope to set it aside and move forward. But we don't know with legalities whether it will be affected going forward to the fact that now they are trying to set aside our report.
What's in your in tray now that you're almost done with the PE stuff?
We have a lot of other investigations that we are busy with. We still continue with the work that we've been doing at the SABC. We're continuing with the work that we have been doing at PRASA. We are continuing with the work that we're doing at ESCOM and Transnet. But you will also remember, Vuyo, that at the end of almost in December, the president signed a proclamation where we are going to start the investigation into the road accident fund. Therefore, that is going to also be one of the big investigations that we are going to look at in this particular year. Today, I think we also got another proclamation that deals with Telkom, and we still going to look into all the issues around it, and it will also take its own space around. While we are doing many others in municipalities, you'll remember we still have an investigation with the water side of things, where there is a Giyani water project that we have to finalize. We still have the municipalities, Makgalakwena, that we are looking into around other issues there. Therefore, there's still a lot of work on our desk, and we're expecting more proclamations to come our way, because we still have more proclamations that we have taken through to the Department of Justice.
And of course, I mean, the work you have produced is you owe a lot of these successes to that multidisciplinary team. Do you still have access to that? Do you still have those experts, in banking, experts in accounting, and that whole big team that you were able to tap into so that you could move with speed? Is that structure still there?
Yes, the structure you're talking about is what we call the Fusion Center, where all the expertise are put in one. We work together there with the FIC, we work together with the Hawks, we work together with all the other law enforcement agencies. And it makes our lives very easy. That is why it was important to be able to block money before it was used, because we're able to block money that was in people's accounts. And even though in some instances, you might have seen last week, we freezed in September sometime money from that Anglo-Ashanti hospital that was renovated in 2 accounts, and those guys were trying to reverse that, and they lost the matter. We are really going to use that, and that is I think the key to some of the things that we are investigating. But as far as we are concerned as the SIU, we have now added some expertise in terms of investigation, in terms of financial investigations, and we've added those people. Some of them are starting in the next month, and some are starting in April, to make sure that we have got a bigger pool of investigators, because there's so much work that is coming our way, and we want to make sure that we do not falter on the issue of making sure that the investigations are done speedily and we have got results, because everything that we do has got to have consequence, because consequence management for us is everything.
That's where we're going to leave it for this evening. Thanks very much for your time. Kaiser Kganyago, who is the spokesperson of the SIU. Today, the president authorizing the release of their report into PPEs and other COVID-19 related matters. We are going to continue with our spotlight on corruption this evening. We're also going to bring you to tell you about that report about South Africa struggling to arrest corruption and perceptions that we are a corrupt nation. Transparency International today released that report. We're going to look into that in a short while. We're also going to look at the ANC MP who once Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, quizzed on the back of allegations that he admitted to knowing that public funds were used for internal ANC campaigns. We'll bring you those stories, but also a panel that's going to analyze it all. But before we do that, we're going to speak to one of South Africa's outspoken business leaders about a proposal that the ANC leadership made at the weekend about a social compact to deal with the country's economic challenges. That and more coming up in a moment. Don't go away. Well, the ANC national leadership has directed its government deployees, including its president and his cabinet ministers, to enter into negotiations with the country's organized business, labor and civil society leaders. This with a view of getting out of that process a new social compact that will inform the country's economic direction. Now, yesterday we spoke to a panel of analysts, some of the country's political commentators, to hear their views. And this evening we're speaking to one of the country's leading business leaders, and that is Busi Mavuso of Leadership South Africa. Good evening, Busi. Thanks very much for your time. Just wondering what came into mind when you heard that the ANC National Executive has given its deployees this mandate once again, maybe one should say, or add.
Once again, that's interesting. Good evening, Vuyo, and thank you very much for inviting me. So, Vuyo, we are at a point as a country where it is now underwhelming when South Africa says it is going to do something, or rather when this ANC-led government says it is going to do something, because we say so many things, but when it comes to delivery, we are found seriously lacking and seriously wanting. I mean, the issue of a new social compact, the issue of business and government meaningfully working together, the president, being on record as saying that we need meaningful participation from business and other social partners has been called on over and over again, but when it comes to implementing it, when it comes to putting it into action, it actually doesn't happen, so it's yet another statement, Vuyo. It's politically correct, of course, for us to be on record to say things like that. I guess we need to be seen to be portraying a particular public image, and it gives people the impression that as a country we are trying to work towards the same direction, as it were. So I guess the test of the pudding is going to be in the eating. Let's see, if 2022 is going to be any different. Let's see, if this will be now seriously put into effect. 2022 is particularly an interesting year for me, because the ANC is going into its, elective conference. And we know that when that happens, you normally see very little action on the ground. So I'm hoping that we have done this now for the past. The ANC has been in power now since 1994. So it's for the past, now it's going to be almost 30 years. So I think we should have now gotten it right, in terms of understanding, what a year like this brings to the fore, and I think the dynamics that come to play, when you are faced with an ANC elective conference, let's hope that it doesn't derail the country agenda. Let's hope that it doesn't actually, derail our focus, of working towards the economic recovery agenda. Let's hope that we don't forget that we are sitting at a serious inflection point in the country where the unemployment is sitting at 42.5% in terms of the expanded definition, where you have more people that are unemployed than those that are employed in all the provinces except Gauteng and the Western Cape. Let us not forget that we're sitting at a country whose poverty levels is more than 50% and youth unemployment of more than 70%. Now, if we don't take seriously this issue of a new social compact, then I worry, that soon we are going to implode as a country.
Well, as you're saying, we can only hope, but then history tells us to expect otherwise. But I'm keen to know what your understanding is of the document that ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa read from on Sunday. Talks about trade-offs. In other words, it mustn't be just about negotiating this social compact, but there must be a clear and thorough understanding of the trade-offs that each partner would have to make.
Absolutely, and I think that is actually going to be critical, because I think we have come from a place where each of us are very deliberate, intentional, and stubborn about protecting our positions. I think we should have seen by now that probably maybe that strategy doesn't work. I think all of us as social partners, not just government, we need to look at, we're going to have to give something up, because in terms of where we find ourselves, something is going to have to give, and it's going to have to give soon. So trade-offs are actually going to be critical in terms of how we proceed in as far as this is concerned. I think as leaders in this country from all social partners, we're going to have to probably maybe have this discussion with South Africa Inc. first in mind, to look at what is it that we need to do to prevent a recurrence of the July anarchy, especially when you're sitting in an environment where the World Economic Forum, when you look at their global risks report that they actually released now on the 11th of January 2022, they are listing social cohesion erosion as a short-term threat to South Africa and 30 other countries. I'm not sure what those 30 other countries are, when they are saying that the disparities, that are already challenging South Africa are expected to widen, in the country. So the discussions that we should have as a country, as leaders, in talking about this new social compact, in thinking about what trade-offs need to be made by all the social partners, are going to have to be done with that backdrop, because it is actually seriously concerning to see that the country risk, as the world views it, has actually heightened, right? And I think we know that for sure. We know that we are in a very dire situation as a country. But remember, this is a country where we have said that our efforts are targeted towards ensuring that we actually attract foreign direct investment. Now, if that is our focus and if that is our agenda, it surely cannot be positive and it cannot be good for South Africa, to be viewed, as a country that will soon implode, due to the social cohesion erosion, as it were. So I think the discussions, if anything else, are really going to have to be more intense, and more deliberate about what is it that we're going to do to protect the 60 million South Africans, as leaders in this country.
Very, very briefly, we'll say, when you say we need to have a conversation as SA Inc., I mean, practically, how do we do that? Because one would have thought that the reason at NEDLEC, for example, you have your representatives of labor, of business, civil society, and the government is precisely to speed up processes, but also to have people who have institutional knowledge, who know where the problems are, so that we're able to deal with the problems and move on or get on with the job. That, of course, is not happening, as you've just said as much. But how do we engage? How do you bring together South Africa Inc. without wasting a great deal of time, which we don't have?
You know, one of the things that we have done from business in terms or in an effort to change TED, because we have realized, that what we've been doing for the past few years is probably maybe not, leading to the result that we'd like to see, is that, for instance, we had a meeting with the president towards the end of last year, it must have been October, where we requested that can business and government in this country start to have bilateral meetings. So it's brilliant that we meet at NetLab with all the other social partners, but when you look at, where the engine room is, for South Africa Inc., I think you will agree, that it is with government, because they have an obligation to ensure that they provide a conducive environment to enable business to invest. And it is definitely with business, because then we have to come to the party in a meaningful way. Once the structural reforms that we've been jumping up and down about are in place, business in this country cannot have an excuse in terms of why investment and ultimately jobs are not going to be forthcoming. So the first bilateral actually with government is happening this coming Friday. So I'm hoping that change intact, at least under this sixth administration, we haven't had a bilateral, with standing bilateral with government. So I'm hoping that this will enable us. And in that bilateral, we've actually listed 5 critical issues that business and government are going to have to focus on working on. So I'm hoping that will be the start, of a meaningful conversation that will definitely lead to results. The 5 issues are really tangible things, that, it's not policy stuff, it's not everything, it's really things on the ground, that we think from a business perspective that if we were to prioritize and work together with government on, I have no doubt whatsoever, that by the time 2022 finishes, we would see a significant economic shift, and definitely an increase in business confidence in this country.
And that's where we're going to leave it for now. Thank you so much for your time, Busi Mavuso, who leads Leadership South Africa. Now, not only are we struggling with moving on the things that Busi just spoke about, we are apparently also struggling to arrest corruption, and perceptions are that we are a corrupt nation. Transparency International 2021 Corruption Perceptions Index was released today, and South Africa ranks 70 out of 180 countries, deep in the bottom half of the rankings. South Africa scored 44 on a scale of 0 to 10, meaning that of the highly corrupt countries, 100 we are not squeaky clean. Corruption Watch says that's dismal. It's the same as last year, and South Africa has hovered around these levels for years now. Now, on this particular day as well, we had an ANC MP who went to court but lost, there, at least for now, in that the court didn't think his matter was urgent, but he is still pursuing that matter. But later on in the day, SCOPA, Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, did listen to his presentation. What he wants is for President Cyril Ramaphosa to be quizzed on the back of allegations that he admitted to knowing that public funds were used for internal campaigns. Now, if you look at the stories we've been doing today, from the SIU report to all these hanging issues that Busi Mavuso was talking about, the issue of whether or not the president should appear before SCOPA, or whether, in fact, what Transparency International is telling us about perceptions of corruption, we do indeed have a lot of work to do. But is the president and his cabinet, who are going into a lekgotla soon, Are they up to the task? And what about the optics that are playing, the stuff that is playing itself out as we speak? And to help us interrogate this matter, we are now joined by Professor Sipho Siepe. Prof, good evening. Thanks very much for your time. Just what you make, I mean, what a news-filled week for this time of the year.
Yeah, I think it shows that we're a very vibrant democracy, and we see members of parties and the ANC taking their responsibility seriously. First, one must also indicate that two issues here. One is at the party level. The president, when he addressed members of the ANC during their anniversary, spoke about how the issue of discipline, ill discipline, and dealing with corruption is important, that the party must deal with it decisively. And he pointed out that it is a duty for members of the ANC not to turn a blind eye when there's corruption or ill discipline. So then there are issues that have to do with law, that anybody who's aware of any corrupt activity, especially when that person is a public official, has a duty to report such. So if you are aware and you fail to report, then you are guilty of a crime. So here you have a member of the ANC taking cue from what the president said to say we should not turn a blind eye to ill discipline or also acts of corruption, because the president had said, even when he received the report from Judge Zondo, he talked about the importance of dealing with corruption. But what Mervyn Dex, who is a member of parliament and a member of the ANC, has done is to say, Mr. President, I take you seriously. And here is the case in point where you were heard, and that has been authenticated to be his voice. You were heard to be saying you are aware that members of the ANC have actually used public funds or misdirected those public funds to their campaigns. And SCOPA has a responsibility when it comes to issues of public accounts. If there is a whiff that suggests that the money has been misdirected, SCOPA must deal with that. And this is what Mervyn Dex has actually done, to simply say, let us take the president seriously, and let's take the ANC's commitment to deal with the corruption seriously. And the president must come and explain what did he mean by saying he is aware that members of the ANC are aware that funds were misdirected for not what they were intended.
Bring Ribone Dao here, Prof, who is with you on this panel. We're going to try, Ribone, and find this a soundbite of Mervyn Dex addressing SCOPA a little earlier, really appealing to them, saying they must do their work. And after that, I'd be keen to hear what you think of his move.
My submission must not be seen as a betrayal of my party or my leaders, but an act of faithfulness to my country and to the Constitution. Honorable Chairperson, having established this, let me acknowledge that it is no small matter to make a request for the President of the Republic to appear before this committee or any committee. In every instance, this is true. And for me personally, as a loyal member of the African National Congress, it is even more so to call for the President of my party and the President of the Republic to be summoned to appear before this committee. I agonized a lot before I took this difficult decision. I certainly did not take it lightly. My initial letter to you of the 22nd of December 2021 reflects
Mervyn Dexter, I mean, he had a lot to say, but I just wanted you to hear that part because for me, he was at pains, trying to say he's not a renegade, he's not being silly. He is pretty much doing what Professor Siepe was saying is what members of the ANC should be doing on the back of what the ANC itself has analyzed to be one of its problems and one of the problems in the country, and something that needs to be dealt with urgently, which is what state law enforcement agencies like your SIU are trying to do.
Good evening, Boyo, and Professor and the viewers at home. I think one must start by saying that what the honorable member Dix did, it's something that should be applauded, because we come from an era, where a president was protected, by the party, and obviously having majority in parliament as the ruling party, the president was not questioned, in terms of the things that were happening in the state, and that's why today we've got the Zondo Commission. Now, when you come from the ANC, NEC Lekgotla, the ANC in its statements talks about building a capable and ethical developmental state. Where does that start? One thing that we need to understand, all the ANC leadership must understand, it's not going to be an easy process. It's going to be a difficult process. And to have such people like Honorable Dix coming out, it shows that some of the members of the ANC are working towards the right direction of making sure that what we saw in the past of a president who was untouchable, who could not account for his actions. Because what President Ramaphosa said in that clip, it's so unfortunate that had the clip not been leaked, would we even know as a nation that such is being discussed amongst ANC, NEC members, acknowledging that money is being taken from the state to push their own factional agendas within the party. And we know that this year, it's a year of conference of the ANC. Would we see some municipalities also money being stolen from some municipalities and some SOEs to fund some of these campaigns? And we know that the ANC, it is struggling financially. So the ANC needs to come up with new ways of doing things after this Zondo Commission. Thanks.
Now, Professor Siepe, I don't know if you watched that session this afternoon. After Mervyn Dex's presentation, a little bit of which we played just now, MPs, members of the committee from various political parties, then started to make their inputs, and by and large, you had the ANC rallying, behind its president, and then you had some within the opposition saying, he should be nudged, speak to him nicely and beg him to come before Scopa. Others saying he should be forced. One couldn't help but think of what Ribone has just touched on, which is the era we came from, where the ANC would rally behind its president, irrespective of what that meant for the rest of us.
Yeah, one would hope that we are moving into an era of accountability, and I think the president has actually said so. And but what has been interesting is that no sooner has he said that, you have a member of ANC taking him seriously, and then the man gets suspended. So the commitment of the ANC to dealing with the issues of ethics and issues of corruption almost does not give one a very good sense. The optics are not gelling. So that is one part. But also, I do think that there is a sense where the ANC, in as much as it wants to support its president, one would say the committee has taken a measured approach. That when you summon somebody, there's a sense of that you assume that that person is reluctant. So they've decided to say, let's approach this in a manner that shows that we're not paying for blood. To simply say the notion of seeking information, especially from the head of state, is probably the first way to go. And upon the receipt of that information, and when it is measured by what the Scopa has, then the committee can then deal with it. So I do think that this measured approach is also, it makes it easier also for the ANC to nudge its own president to say, Mr. President, this is what you said, and this is what we had to be saying. What did you mean by that? So the whole notion of giving the president an opportunity is actually a correct one. And I do think it will not end there, because there'll be other issues that would emerge from the response. But I do think that the committee wanted to move forward, and rather than to say we're going to summon him, to say let us not be antagonistic, but the answers we will get in other ways. And one way is to ask him to explain himself.
Rabona, if you were to get an opportunity to advise him, what would you advise the president?
I think the best thing the president should do is respond to Scopa, but also give an honest answer. And why I say this, we can go back to the Zondo Commission, when the president appeared before the Zondo Commission, which was a bit worrying when he said that as the chair of the deployment committee, there were no minutes of that meeting, and especially now this leaked clip is out there in the public. Everyone, most South Africans have heard it, who have had access to the clip. So he should just do what is right and cooperate with Scopa if he's serious about fighting corruption in this country. Because the reality of the matter, yes, we know that he might be standing for second term, but he needs to do what is in the best interest of the country. We don't want to go to an era where the ANC used to say collective responsibility, as we've seen in the past. And what is also more certain is that we have not seen a statement from the ANC on this matter, which is also a bit worrying.
Well, Mervyn Dex remains suspended. That should tell you a lot. Prof, to you, Cyril Ramaphosa is, yes, the president of the ANC, but lots of ANC leaders are either contesting him in a year that this organization is going to an elective conference, and others are simply pushing back because they are in one way or the other implicated in all manner of things. How do you see it panning out?
Well, we must understand that there are two issues, like you say, he's the president of the country and he's also the president of the ANC. There are issues of law that he must respond to on this matter. There are issues of parliament that he must deal with. He is obligated to report any acts of corruption. And if it comes out that he knowingly omitted that, what Mervyn Dex calls criminal omission, then one hopes that the members of parliament will take that very seriously. So that is one aspect that needs to be dealt with. But also the question is, there will be other parties that will open a case against him, or a criminal case against him, because of the law which is in our stated books. But then you also have the issue of, can he be trusted? And when it comes to the issue of the party, obviously the party will have to deal with a number of issues. One of those is what was the promises that the President Ramaphosa put on the table to say, if I become the president, these are the deliverables, these will be the outcomes. And those are very clear. He talked about the economic growth. He talked about dealing with unemployment. He talked about confidence in a state institution. But what we are beginning to see is something else. And members of the ANC will be harping on those, that with this deep poverty, with this, with the investment that is not coming. Remember, we had many investment conferences, and that was almost the president playing to the public gallery. So all those things will come to bite him when members begin to say, what is the record? Then you also have the resolutions of the party at the conference, that how far has the president gone and the ANC leadership gone towards implementing those. So these are some of the factors and issues that will be considered in determining who becomes the next president.
From where you sit, Mervyn Dex's suspension, the arguments you've heard being made today, particularly by ANC MPs, is it a sign to you, or does it tell you that this is an organization on the mend?
The ANC is going through a very difficult time, a crisis. They've been talking about the issue of unity. We can go back to 2012, the General Aid Statement. Unfortunately, the unity is not there, the renewal is not there. The renewal part did not even take off, But the reality of the matter is that yes, they are going to the conference in December. It won't be as difficult as it was for him in 2017, because in most cases, it becomes difficult when you are running for your first term. But the second term, we've seen historically with the former President Zuma, with former President Thabo Mbeki, that it's easy to emerge going to a second term. But the ANC is in a serious crisis. And right now, I can safely say that even its own identity, it's questionable. I don't think that the National Executive Committee of the ANC has a clear sense of what is the current identity of the ANC at this present moment. They walk left and they do something on the right. That's the sad reality about the ANC. And as I've said earlier on, that they did not even protect Honorable Dix, when they always speak about anti-corruption. It seems like this corruption is for only a selective few within the ANC, and certain faction within the ANC is not to be charged. And is it because maybe this is a matter of a sitting president, and some feel that they need to protect him, and not based on a principal matter. It's just people protecting their own selfish interests to remain in power with blue lights and having all the perks that comes with being a minister or being close to the president, because most of the national executive members are serving in the executive.
Special thanks to both of you, Professor Sipho Siepe and Ribone Dao. To this story now that got South Africans talking over the past 24 hours. An ANC councillor in the Amatole District Municipality in the Eastern Cape, who was forcefully removed from her office by security guards, says she is fearing for her life. A video showing Nanziwe Khulashe being dragged on the floor in full view of staff members in the district's offices in East London went viral on social media yesterday. In the video that is showing her half-naked body, she's seen screaming, begging the people to let her go. The 5 accused people are currently out on bail, facing a common assault charge after appearing in the East London Magistrates Court. To talk to us now about this is Bheki Stofile, who is the SALGA's Governance and Councillor Empowerment Chairperson. Good evening, Councillor. Thank you very much for your time. So many people, like political parties like your ANCs, like your ZAPOs, the caucus there in the municipalities, really expressing their disgust at the humiliation that Councillor Khulashe suffered, irrespective of what may have happened. No one should be dragged in such a fashion. A public representative, Nohal, inside the property of the council.
Good evening, Vuyo, and good evening to your listeners. And we really greet you. And indeed, we as South African Local Government Association feel sorry of what happened in that municipality, because our understanding is that a councillor, like in any company, it represents the interests and the aspirations of the community and provide strategic leadership in terms of policy direction in which the institution should follow. That inclusive of the staff establishment and building relations with the shareholders of reference. And to our understanding as an association, shareholders of reference is communities that are looking upon municipality to render service through their representative and their representative ability to attract skillful individuals to perform tasks that begin to address the challenges that the communities are facing. If we counterpose this, Vuyo, our understanding is that our shareholders, which you and many others refer to them as public, when they held AGM on the 1st of November, part of their assessment it was to look in the period in which they've elected since 2016 to date. And then in November, they then decided in their AGM to elect a new board of directors, which in your case, you commonly refer to it as councillors. And part of their responsibility, therefore, is to establish systems and make sure that you have a responsive government that deals with matters that they face on a daily basis. So that is our understanding. That is why we feel sorry, but we have engaged with the municipality and the mayor of that municipality upon receival of this news over social media. And then we immediately interacted with him and tried to solicit what might have gone wrong and what is the action that the municipality is going to take. And we hope that with that councillor being humiliated in the manner in which he was humiliated in the public, in the office of the public, and be dragged on the ground, it has affected his trust and belief to herself in terms of standing before the community and address communities. Because communities today, they will always refer that to him that he is nothing for the fact that they have been dragged on the soil.
Okay.
I think the second point to me...
We don't have the facts here. We don't know what actually happened and what led to this. But the point South Africans have been making is that what we saw was just wrong. It's something that we should never, ever see again. But here's something I want clarity on from you. Whose responsibility or who has the authority to remove public representatives from whether it's council chambers or the administrative building of the municipality, and under what conditions? And I'm asking this particularly because I don't know if you've seen again, there's another video that has surfaced. I think it's in the Gqeberha side of the country, where there's an allegation that security guards were once again used by officials to check out an official. I'm not sure about this. I don't know whether it is true or not. I can't vouch for the validity, of the tape itself. But assuming that indeed was to be true, it then says there is a much bigger problem that we should be dealing with here. But clarify to us who has the authority to remove, drag, councillors out of municipal buildings? Or put differently, what is the way to deal with disputes that may arise between councillors who may be playing their oversight role and officials who may think that, bayasukelo?
In all councils in the municipality throughout the country, you've got the speaker and the mayor. And the speaker is responsible in terms of the code of conduct and welfare of councillors. Those that happen to be appointed in the mayoral committee, the mayor then become an immediate leader in that situation. So in the situation where, for instance, Councillor Stofile happened to behave in a manner that it not befits the office or the rules that the council has adopted or procedures and policies that council has approved, the speaker is empowered to take an appropriate decision over the removal of such individual, or a mayor in the case of a mayoral committee. So you have instruments, various instruments that are existing in the local government sector. Now, if it happened that Stofile happened to misbehave, and then therefore we expect that the speaker will then chip in terms of code of conduct of councillors and the manner in which councillors had to behave.
Okay. Councillor Stofile, we haven't had the last of this particular story. It is indeed a developing story, and as we heard, I said right at the beginning, this people who manhandled Councillor Khulashe have appeared before court, and South Africans, I'm sure, are looking forward to finding out what actually happened and what is going to be done to ensure that something like that never ever happens again. We leave you with a package from our team in the Eastern Cape that did speak to Councillor Khulashe, who told us her story. And that is our program for this evening. Do join us again tomorrow, 8 p.m. sharp.
Thank you very much.
A video that sparked outrage. The accused in the matter were granted 500 rand bail each. The victim says she is still traumatized.
It has just put my dignity and to a level that I cannot even express. I was humiliated and I'm not feeling good about it. I'm really traumatized.